Whether you're a dreamer with a new idea or a massive global brand, there's one platform that has become the quiet, essential engine behind so much of what we buy online. Today, we're diving into how Shopify truly became the operating system for commerce.
All right, so it really all begins with their mission, making commerce better for everyone. Now, that sounds nice, but it's not just some corporate tagline. This is really the core DNA of the company. It's all about taking the complex, expensive tools once reserved for giant corporations and handing the keys to anyone with an idea. And we're about to see how that one simple goal shapes absolutely everything they do. So, to really get how they became so dominant, we're going to follow what I like to call their scaling ladder. First, we'll see how they get people started. Then we'll look at how they help brands sell everywhere at once. After that, we'll climb up to see how they power some of the biggest companies in the world. And finally, we'll look at the absolutely staggering numbers that prove the whole thing works. Right, so every huge company starts with a small idea. And for literally millions of entrepreneurs, that journey starts right here. Shopify's real genius was figuring out how to take that initial spark of excitement and turn it into a real money-making business without all the technical headaches.
And this is the promise. It's so powerful. The message isn't just, hey, start a store. No. It's, you could be the next household name. You could build the next global empire. It's totally aspirational, and it speaks right to the heart of what drives every entrepreneur.
So how do they deliver on that promise? Well, they've basically taken a mountain of complexity and boiled it down to just 3 simple steps. I mean, think about what's not on this list. There's no wrestling with servers, no complicated coding, no figuring out payment gateways. They just cleared all the traditional hurdles right off the path. And this isn't just marketing fluff. The data is incredible. Every 26 seconds, someone, somewhere in the world, experiences the thrill of making their very first sale on Shopify. The platform is just this nonstop launchpad for new businesses 24/7.
Okay, so you've made that first sale. That's a huge moment. But the very next question is always, okay, now what? How do I actually grow? This is where Shopify evolves from just a website builder into a true commerce platform. It's not just about getting started, it's all about scaling up. And the key concept to understand is this idea of a unified platform. The best way to think about it is like this central nervous system of a business. It doesn't matter if a sale happens on a website, in a physical pop-up shop, through Instagram, or as a big wholesale order. Everything, every customer, every sale, it all flows back to one single brain.
And because you have that central brain, you can be everywhere your customers are. You can have your main online store, but also run a point of sale system at a weekend market, sell directly through social media, expand into different countries, and even manage a B2B wholesale operation, all from the same place.
And this thing is built to handle insane growth. The perfect example is a brand like Gymshark. They are the classic started in a garage story, and they blew up into a global fitness empire, doing over $500 million in sales a year. And the craziest part, they did it all on Shopify, without ever having to switch platforms.
So now, let's go all the way to the top of that ladder, because up here, Shopify isn't just competing with other e-commerce tools. They're competing with massive, expensive, custom-built internal systems. We are in a completely different league now.
I mean, just think about it. The needs of a brand new seller versus a global enterprise are night and day, right? A startup needs a simple theme and an easy way to get paid. But a company like Mattel, they need custom architecture, complex international checkouts, wholesale portals, and rock-solid 99.9% uptime for huge product drops. The fact that one platform can serve both ends of the spectrum is pretty incredible. And these aren't just hypothetical examples. We're talking about iconic brands, Mattel, Allbirds, Skims, trusting Shopify with their most important sales channels. I mean, these are companies that could afford to build anything they want from scratch, and yet they choose Shopify. So why do they do it? Well, it's a mix of flexibility and power for sure, but the real kicker is this, the total cost of ownership. That means when you add up all the costs, developers, maintenance, security, all of it, Shopify comes out, on average, 33% cheaper than the alternatives. For a big enterprise, that is a huge, huge deal.
Okay, you can talk strategy and features all day, but you know what really tells the story of Shopify's dominance? The numbers. So let's take a look at the data behind this massive commerce engine.
This number is just hard to even wrap your head around. Let me put it this way. More than 1 out of every $10 spent online in the entire United States flows through a Shopify checkout. That is an absolutely massive slice of the whole pie.
And what's wild is that the platform isn't just big, it's actually accelerating. This chart shows the growth of what's called gross merchandise volume. That's just the total value of everything sold. And you can see the growth rate itself is getting bigger every year. That's a sign of some serious compounding momentum.
And that momentum shows up right on their bottom line. Just look at these year-over-year leaps. GMV is getting close to $400 billion. Revenue is pushing $12 billion. $2 billion in free cash flow. These aren't just big numbers, this is explosive growth across the board.
So the big takeaway from the financials is this. Shopify has built this incredibly powerful and profitable business model that's tied directly to the success of its merchants. It's the perfect flywheel, right? When their sellers win, Shopify wins. And a 30% jump in revenue in just 1 year shows you how fast that flywheel was spinning.
So where does all this lead? You've got this incredible scale, this amazing growth, all this profit. For Shopify, it isn't just about getting bigger for the sake of it. It actually all comes full circle, right back to that original mission. I think this quote from Shopify's president, Harley Finkelstein, says it all. You see, the leadership team doesn't just view this as a piece of software. They truly see it as essential infrastructure for the entire modern economy. Their goal is to take all that scale and power the next wave of entrepreneurs, the next generation of builders.
And so that leaves us with one final really important question. In a world where AI is starting to completely reshape how we buy and sell things, can the platform that defined the last era of e-commerce continue to innovate and lead us into the future? That is the challenge and the huge opportunity that lies ahead for them.
All right, welcome to the Explainer. So Shopify just dropped their 2025 earnings, and wow, the numbers are big. But you know, the real story here isn't just about a great year. It's about how they're setting the stage for a massive shift, a future totally powered by AI for all of e-commerce. Let's dig in.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll hit the big headline story. Then we're going to dig into the numbers, see what's really driving all this. After that, we'll get into their huge bet on AI, and of course, what's on the horizon for 2026.
All right, so every big earnings report has that one big idea, right? The headline that kind of sums it all up. And for Shopify's 2025, what better way to get it than straight from their own president?
Okay, so pay close attention to the wording here. This isn't just, hey, we had a good year. No. That phrase, laying the rails for the new era of AI commerce, that tells you everything. It shows their heads aren't in the past quarter, they're already building the tracks for the next 5 years.
And that full throttle thing? It's not just some nice-sounding corporate speak. It is backed by this monster number, 30%. 30% revenue growth year over year. Now, for a company this big, that's not just growth. That is hitting the accelerator hard.
Okay, so how in the world does a company that's already huge pull off 30% growth, right? The answer, as always, is in the details. So let's get into it and decode this scorecard, see the why behind the wow.
First up, the big one. The top-line revenue came in at a massive $11.6 billion. You can think of that as the raw fuel being poured into the Shopify engine. And as we're about to see, that engine is running incredibly efficiently. But here's the kicker, and this is what really gets investors excited. This isn't just growth for growth's sake. We're talking $2 billion in free cash flow. That's real cash in the bank they can use. And get this, they've done this for 10 straight quarters. That tells you this isn't a one-time thing. It's a seriously disciplined and sustainable business model. So if you really want to wrap your head around just how massive Shopify is now, look at this number. They handle more than 14% of all e-commerce in the US. I mean, let that sink in for a second. For every $7 spent online in the entire country, one of those dollars is going through a Shopify-powered store. That, my friends, is what you call market power.
Okay, quick sidebar. Before we go any further, there's a term you gotta know, GMV. It stands for gross merchandise volume. Basically, it's the total dollar value of everything sold by all the merchants on their platform. It's not Shopify's revenue, right? But in a way, it's even more important because it shows you how healthy their whole ecosystem is. It's the pulse of the platform.
Okay, so when you put it all side by side like this, the picture becomes crystal clear. Just look at the consistency from that GMV we just talked about all the way down to operating income. Every single important metric is way up. This tells us it's not like one part of the business is dragging the rest along. Nope, the whole machine is firing on all cylinders, and that growth is translating directly into profit.
So that's the what. Now for the where. Where is all this growth actually coming from? And you might just think,
oh, it's just more people opening up online shops. But that's not the whole story. The real secret sauce is how they've diversified their growth engines. I mean, look at this. They're growing everywhere. International is up big. Their point-of-sale systems for physical stores are up. But the really mind-blowing numbers, those are coming from two places in particular: B2B commerce and their payment system, ShopPay. That's the rocket fuel right there. Let's just stop and talk about that B2B number for a second. Plus 96%. Their platform for wholesale, for businesses selling to other businesses, has almost doubled in 1 year. And this is huge because it proves they're not just for the little guy anymore. They're successfully capturing a huge piece of that massive, super lucrative B2B market. Okay, so all this money, all this success, it's not just to look good on a balance sheet. It's fuel. It's ammunition for their next big bet. And that bet is all in on one thing: AI. This is exactly what Harley Finkelstein was talking about when he said they were laying the rails. Their CFO actually called out 3 specific areas where they're pouring money into AI. First, you've got Catalog, which uses AI to help manage products. Then there's Sidekick, which is like an AI assistant for the merchants themselves. And finally, something called the Universal Commerce Protocol, which is basically infrastructure to let you sell stuff anywhere online super easily. And really, the strategy here is pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. They're using the profits they're making today to build the absolute essential tools for the commerce of tomorrow. They're not just riding the wave, they're actively trying to build the next one. And hey, if you needed any more proof that they believe in their own strategy, well, here you go. The board just gave the green light for a $2 billion share buyback program. That is the company putting its own money where its mouth is, in a big way. It's a huge signal that they think their own stock is an incredible long-term bet. All right, so we've seen how strong 2025 was. The big question now is, what does the road ahead look like? Let's take a peek at their official forecast for 2026. So heading into the first quarter of 2026, it looks like they have no plans to take their foot off the gas. They're projecting revenue growth in the low 30s, which means they're keeping that full throttle pace going. And what's really crucial here is that they're also expecting to keep those free cash flow margins strong. This is them proving their core idea, that you can have explosive growth and be super profitable at the exact same time. So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, it's pretty clear what's happening. 2025 was an amazing year for them for sure. But for Shopify, it's just the foundation. They're making a multi-billion-dollar bet that the entire future of how we buy and sell things will be built on a backbone of AI. And they are absolutely determined to be the ones holding the blueprints. So the real question is, will this massive bet be enough to lock in their dominance for the next decade to come?